What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters, and welcome to nolifetilmetal. Today I have with me Rob Whitlock.
What's up?
Rob Whitlock, who used to play bass in Ultimatum.
Yeah.
And is now the head brewer for
Star Brothers Brewing Company, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
So if you're ever in Albuquerque, you go to Star Brothers and say hey to Rob. He's probably always there.
Yeah, usually.
And today we're going to be doing a kind of a pound for pound video. Iron Maiden versus Judas Priest. Kind of the every metalhead ever has had this debate. Who do you like better, Priest or Maiden? Shoot, I've even seen like magazine articles on Priest versus Maiden. So we're kind of going to, I made some categories, and we're going to kind of talk about those categories, but I think we can pretty much agree that both bands are pretty seminal.
Oh yeah, iconic, yeah.
And I love both bands. I
yeah.
mean, so to really say I like one over the other is kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to pick.
Yeah, it's hard to pick. I mean, they're both.
It's hard to pick a favorite. They're both so
awesome.
great. Yeah.
Exactly. Both were hugely influential bands to both of us.
Yes.
When we recorded our tribute album in Ultimatum, we did a Priest and a Maiden song.
Yes.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to say, but we're gonna get into it anyhow. I mean, both bands had what, dual guitar players.
Yeah. And
both had great dual guitar players.
Great dual guitar players, soaring vocals.
Yep, I mean, iconic vocalists, obviously,
yeah.
Alfred and Dickinson, and then of course bass players.
Yeah.
Ian Hill was kind of underrated.
Underrated, yeah, he's solid.
Yeah. Obviously, Steve Harris is a.
Yeah, he's the exception to the rule for most bass players though, because he's just out front. And
yeah, he is.
Started out being his band, you know.
He pretty much is Maiden.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then of course, I mean, Priest has gone through drummers like Spinal Tap's gone through drummers. So,
yeah.
I mean, Maiden's gone through a couple drummers, right?
Yeah,
so.
They've had two during their recording career, yeah.
And what Priest has now, they've had great drummers. I mean, Les Binks, we were talking earlier. Les Binks is a freaking awesome drummer.
Yeah,
he's always been my favorite from the band. But Scott Travis,
yeah,
awesome. Yeah. But yeah, they're 80s. What's his name?
Dave Holland.
Dave Holland.
He was more of just the steady, rock steady kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he laid that foundation for that signature Priest sound there during the 80s and that, you know.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, he was steady. He just wasn't flashy. That's probably what I was looking for. So, all right. So anyhow, the first category we're going to hear. We can hold this one up, and I'll do this one. But their first albums. I mean, now they're good. What, almost 10 years apart. This is 73, 74.
Yeah.
That one there is 1980.
Yeah.
But I mean, which one do you like better?
I'm gonna have to go with Maiden.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna have to go with Maiden too.
Yeah.
I love ROCKA, but ROCKA grew on me because it wasn't my first Maiden album. I mean, my first Priest album. I discovered Priest later on down the road and went back, and this album was very different. It's not really very Priestish.
No, it's more.
It's got kind of a more of
an early '70s kind of vibe to it. Yeah,
kind of a rock and roll sound. With the exception of, what was it? There was one song, was it Deep Freeze? Kind of has that, or is it Cheater? Maybe Never Satisfied.
Cheater, Never Satisfied, yeah.
Yeah, but still, it's a good album. I like it a lot.
Armored Saint did a great cover of that song.
That's right.
Yeah.
But this album is freaking brilliant.
This album because it almost, they kind of paved the way with their own style.
Yep.
You know, the galloping. I mean, I know they picked up. Steve Harris picked up a lot of influences from earlier stuff. You can talk all day about that, but this was more. They had a signature sound which they developed already on this album. Yep. Yep.
I mean, I know he's credited a lot like Thin Lizzy and for the band sound, and definitely can hear Thin Lizzy, but that's more the dual guitar thing. It's not with the bass
guitar.
thing.
The galloping. I'll go back to what I always hear. A lot of the galloping, like that kind that I figure influenced Maiden is Achilles' Last Stand by Led Zeppelin. That song right there has that, to me, it always...
And he has listed Zeppelin as one of his influences as well.
Oh, yeah,
right? So, yeah, I don't know. So Maiden takes that one, so Maiden gets point number one.
Yeah, because really they forged a sound on this album that they still have to this day, kind of, that, in their style, yeah.
And although Harris will deny it, I always thought this album kind of had a bit of a punk edge. Yeah. Maybe in the delivery, especially in the vocals.
Yeah, Di'Anno brought a lot of that, I think. Yeah, Paul Di'Anno.
And I know to this day that Steve Harris denies they ever had any punk influence, but I hear it.
Because they were the kind of the anti-punk
at the time, yeah.
Because they were trying to forge ahead when punk was big in England, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. But anyhow. So, all right, so Maiden gets point number one.
Yeah.
But all right, we're gonna go to album number 2, and we're not gonna do every album. But I did decide to do, because these albums are so iconic. I decided to do the first 2 albums. I mean, so you got Priest, Sad Wings of Destiny. You know, this is when Priest to me became Priest.
Yeah.
The Iron Maiden Killers.
This to me, this is iconic. This is probably my top. It goes between my #1 top favorite album all time to my #2 favorite album all time. This album right here to me is just. This is the first Iron Maiden album I ever owned, and being a bass player.
Yeah.
Getting this album, putting it on, hearing it for the first time. I still remember the first time I put the needle onto the vinyl and heard that intro to Wrath Child came on, and I freaked out because I had never heard anyone play the bass like that before, and it just it really inspired me, and it still inspires me to this day.
And this is the first album. This is when I discovered Maiden too. I was in high school at the time, and a buddy of mine's like, "Dude, you got to hear this Maiden, the Iron band called Iron Maiden. They're better than Priest." That's what I remember him telling me that. We went over his place, we listened to this, and like, it was jaws dropping.
Yeah.
I mean, and to this day, Killers has always been my favorite. But this album here is also seminal.
Oh yeah, Sad Wings of Destiny.
Sad Wings of Destiny.
So many of their staple songs that are still in their set today are on that album. Yeah.
I mean, Victim of Changes,
Victim
obviously.
Changes, Tyrant, Genocide.
Yep. But even songs like Isle of Domination and
The Ripper.
I mean, this is just so. For me, it's really hard to say which one I like better. It's more like of which mood am I in?
Right. Yeah.
Am I in the mood to hear Priest or Maiden?
Yeah.
But if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably go with Killers.
Yeah, me too.
Only because it may be a different Priest album. I would have picked it, but I don't know, man. It's just Killers is such a seminal album for me. It was such a pivotal point in my metal-headedness.
I'm actually fortunate enough and old enough to I saw this tour.
Yeah.
They were opening for UFO. I saw them in San Bernardino, California, and they came out and they just tore the roof off that place. They owned that show, and I went to that show because I had just gotten this album. I mean, just probably weeks before that. And I was a UFO fan, but I was more of the Shanker, and that was when Paul Chapman. So we were all kind of, well, Shanker's not in UFO anymore, you know. But UFO was still great. But I saw that they had this new band from England, this Iron Maiden, was like, whoa, Iron Maiden's opening up? Yeah, let's go, because I wanted to see that bass player. Oh.
Didn't disappoint, did he?
No, he did not. No.
Of course, UFO had a great bass player as well.
Oh, yeah, Pete Way. Yep.
Who just passed away last year, right?
Yeah.
What a bummer.
Yeah.
Anyhow, all right, so we'll give 2 points now to Maiden.
Yeah.
Kind of an unfair competition because, like I said, it's almost a decade in between these 2 albums here, you know? So,
right.
But next we're going to go with their first live albums. So we've got Unleashed in the East versus Live After Death. I mean, you could have gone with the EP, but
Made in Japan.
Yeah, Made in Japan, but it was an EP. It wasn't really an album. So I would. That's why I went with Live After Death.
This was a plan. That was just kind of something they put out.
Yeah,
you know, from a
exactly.
soundboard recording kind of thing or whatever. But yeah,
so for me, this is one of the greatest live albums of all time. I also think this is one of the greatest live albums of all time. But if I made a top 5, that wouldn't be in it, and this would. So for me, this is where Priest kind of takes the cake.
I'll take that one too over this one. Even
though I know that there's a lot of re-recording on here, I don't know how much recording was on this one, but I mean, it still captures that energy, that live feel. I've seen Priest many times, and they're freaking awesome. They've always been awesome. Remember that time we went to go see him? It was just a few years ago. We went to go see him play Unleashed.
British Steel over at the
whole album.
Casino.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
I mean, it's just the whole album live. Even the songs that I've heard a million times that I was tired of, like Living After Midnight, were great that night.
So, Breaking the Law, Living After Midnight. But yeah, they were great.
Oh yeah. And then. They ended with, what's the song they ended with? We did the recording
Steeler.
of it. Steeler, yeah. Oh, man, I love that song.
Yeah.
Which is why we recorded a cover of it. So, anyhow, so there you go. One for Priest. I'm going to say this is, it's not as long as this one. This is a double album. But if most Priest fans know that this album actually had a single that came on the Japanese version too, so it was a little longer than this U.S. pressing of it. But Priest gets the point on this one, so. Priest is down 2-1 here. All right, next up we've got, let's see. Okay, so both bands had seminal vocalists, right?
Yeah.
And they lost their vocalists when both seemed right around the time when metal was kind of dying out and was no longer in vogue.
Right.
So they got new vocalists. Priest, I don't have this on vinyl, so Priest got Tim Ripper Owens.
Mm-hmm.
Maiden got
Blaze Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
From Wolfsbane fame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I liked Wolfsbane. I still like Wolfsbane.
Yeah, I love Wolfsbane.
Frankly, I think he was better in Wolfsbane than he was in Maiden. To me, this is the winner of the two of the new vocalist things. Just
that one sounds more Judas Priest than this one sounded Iron Maiden
yes.
before they had
So now this one here, I went into Hastings when there was a Hastings around, and I bought a CD. I can't remember what it was, but when I was leaving, they handed me a free cassette of the song Bullet Train. And it was just a single, and that Bullet Train cassette, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And I loved it. So I also think the song Cathedral Spires on here.
Yes.
It's one of the, they need to do that song with Halford. That is just such a great song. Now this album, when it first came out,
it's got Sign of the Cross. I
kind of hated it when it first came out. It didn't sound like Maiden. Over the years, I've grown to love it. It's a darker Maiden. It doesn't have that fun galloping,
right?
It's just darker.
It's kind of it was probably a blow for Dickinson to leave the band.
Sure.
For the rest of the band, so this is kind of more, they were trying to find something else and trying to find a different direction a little bit, kind of, whereas Judas Priest kind of still just plugged along in the Judas Priest direction,
I mean, there's not a whole lot between this and a Painkiller.
Right.
Whereas this one, but I also remember reading that Steve Harrison was going through a lot of personal crap at the time.
Right.
So, but it's still a good album, and I like it now a lot more than I did when I first got it. But I'm going to give the point to Priest on this one, on the new vocalist thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll give it to there.
But yeah, so we got a tie right now, 2-2, but I have a feeling that might change sooner. Anyhow, I don't know. I like them both, but it's kind of, all this stuff is kind of just silly stuff, fun stuff. So
yeah, because it's all great. They're all great. Yeah.
So next up, we got the returning of the classic, the seminal vocalists.
Oh yeah.
And Priest came back with Halford and released Angel Retribution. Iron Maiden came back and released
Brave New World. Ghost of the Navigator, Wicker Man, Blood Brothers.
Now, Wicker Man, to me, I like that song, but man, that riff is actually a Priest riff. Identical to a Priest song.
Yeah?
I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head now. I should have looked it up. I knew I was going to bring it up. Now I can't remember what it was. It's an old Priest song, but yeah, it's identical. There's it's almost note for note the same.
Yeah. They also added back Adrian Smith
on that one, yeah. Because Dickinson released some great solo albums.
Yes, he did. So did Halford. Yeah.
With both Fight and Halford,
right.
Yeah. So, but I think this album is fantastic. I mean, this is.
Yeah, they're both.
They're both pretty damn good.
I'm actually not as familiar with that album as I am with this album, so maybe I'll go with this album. Yeah,
I could go with either one, but I'm probably going to go with Angel. I mean, Judas Rising is just a freaking awesome song.
That's hard. I don't know.
There's just not a song on here I really don't like. So, Deal with the Devil, Revolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call it a tie.
Yeah. Okay, a tie.
Because I think they're both solid comeback albums from both bands. I mean, this was also a return to that Maiden sound. You know what I mean? It kind of has that galloping bass.
Right.
It's that kind of, I don't want to call it 80s metal, but it's just, maybe it is 80s metal. I don't know.
It was just back to the more familiar Iron Maiden style.
Yeah, it wasn't that dark sound that they had on those Blaze Bailey albums. And,
right.
It even generated a hit. I mean, I don't know how big the hit was, but it was on the radio quite a bit. And
yeah.
So did Judas Rising, though. Judas Rising was on the radio quite a bit, too, when it first came out. So.
Yes.
Both got kick-ass covers, too, man.
Yeah.
Both bands have had some really good covers. And
right.
I think if we went off covers, though, I think Maiden would take the cake on that one. But
yeah.
they had their bloopers, too.
Show the back, I've been showing the back. Yeah.
Dance of Death.
Yeah. Dance of Death. Stonehenge.
Yeah. Stonehenge. All right, so we're called a tie. So we're still tied because Maiden and Priest. But let's see, what is the next category? So best comeback album with a returning vocalist. Best latest studio album.
Oh.
So, Maiden's got
Book of Souls.
Priest got Firepower.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's Fire. Book of Souls is good. It's epic, historical, all that, and it's really good. I really like it. But yeah, that album right there will just rip your face off.
This
right
album,
there,
yeah. To me, this takes the cake. But
Yeah.
that I had a hard time getting into that one at first. It just was so long.
Yeah, it's so long. Yeah, some of the songs are
Some of the songs that kind of dragged on for me, but it just took some time to absorb it and get used to it. And once I did, and now I like it. And especially once you after they have a live album that came out after this one, when you start hearing some of the songs live and you start appreciating more of the studio stuff, it's kind of how it was with that one.
Right.
But this album here, oh my gosh, I think this is the best Priest album they've done since Halford's Return.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I mean, this...
Yeah, that album's just phenomenal. Yeah.
Awesome. I actually got my ticket stub. I went to see him in L.A. with Saxon and Black Star Riders, Thin Lizzy.
Mm-hmm.
What a great show. Anyhow, so yeah, I'm gonna go with Priest on this one for me. But you got anything to say about that one other than?
It's just like I said. It's just the epic Iron Maiden. They just keep, their albums just keep getting more and more epic, and they're doing their thing, and that's their thing. Is the historical stuff and the yeah.
To me, this is less a heavy metal album, more of a prog rock album.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whereas this is just straight up.
Yeah, that's
straightforward heavy metal.
Yeah.
So and I love prog rock, so it's not I'm not saying one better or worse than the other. It's just But both again, great cover art.
Yeah.
No longer Derek Riggs though for them.
No. So. Yeah, but it's always Eddie.
Yeah, it's always Eddie, which was Derek Riggs'
creation. Yeah.
I got to meet Derek Riggs one time, and actually I got to spend an entire day with Derek Riggs one time. I was at a show and sat right next to him, and actually over there I got that little Eddie poster signed by him.
Yeah.
And I also asked him to sign an Iron Maiden record, which I also have hanging up behind us, and he signed over top the Iron Maiden logo. Mm-hmm. And the guy behind me also got his album signed, and he signed on the Iron Maiden logo again. And I asked him, I said, why you sign over the Iron Maiden logo? He goes, those guys always sign over my artwork. I'm signing over their logo.
Makes sense.
It's pretty funny. That guy was funny. He was a character. Yeah. All right, so Priest is up by 1 right now. But this is probably where it'll change, because now it comes to your favorite albums from these bands. And you picked...
Yeah, mine's Killers.
And Killers is really mine too, but I decided to go just for this video because I think this album needs to be shown. It's such a... I just think this is one of...
Oh, yeah.
Besides Killers, this was number 2 for me. To me, if someone was to say, what is heavy metal, I could give them this album and say, play, here you go, this is heavy metal. But I could do the same thing with...
You do the same thing with this
album.
One.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I could also do the same thing with... Here's.
Oh, yeah.
With these. So my favorite album my favorite studio album from Priest, I usually go back and forth between between Stained Class or Hellbent for Leather, and he was the same way. He's like Hellbent for Leather or British Steel.
Yeah.
So, but if I had to pick just one of these albums, man.
Yeah.
So this is where it gets kind of silly. It's like it just depends on what mood I'm in. I love them all. So
yeah. Well, that's good. That says a lot about these bands. I mean, because it's like, oh yeah, well those two are good, but those other ones aren't that good. No, it's just that they're all so good. You know?
Yes, exactly. So I mean,
yeah, I like Hellbent for Leather. That was the first Priest album I heard was from a friend of mine. He had Stained Class. Actually, his big brother had Stained Class, and we listened to it. And it's the first I heard, but the first one I bought, I had an 8-track tape of Hellbent for Leather. And so that's why it's always, I mean, delivering the goods. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. That whole album is just fantastic.
And then British Steel was, I remember because, we were playing in high school. We had our bands. We were learning how to play. And this album came out. And it kind of gave us a blueprint on, wow, this is we learned how to play Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law. And all, but it gave us a blueprint. This is how you play heavy metal,
Right.
Yeah. So it was.
So for me, this was my discovery of Priest, and it was an accident. I heard, I was in a record store, and I picked up a copy out of a dollar bin of Sin After Sin, which is the third Priest album.
Yeah.
and it was in the dollar bin because it was a Sin After Sin cover, but it had this album inside.
Inside. Oh, okay.
So, and I didn't realize that when I bought it, but I got it home and I played it. So the first song I heard was Exciter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was just addicted to Priest after that. It was very soon after that I discovered, it had to be like 1980, 81, 80, like 1982 came Screaming for Vengeance, and then that was it. That's
it's cool.
Fanatic now.
There's another iconic album. It's
Yeah, I mean, I almost grabbed that out because it's like, to me, that is an album that defines heavy metal.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So this was the album that got me onto Priest, and so I think that's why it's always my favorite. But it also has some great songs on here. Saints in Hell. Oh my gosh, what a great song that is!
Savage. Yep.
Savage is a great song. Yeah, Beyond the Realms of Death. And then I've always liked the cover of I think it's a cover. Better by You, Better Than Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it Argent?
I'm not
I can't remember. Anyhow, Invader, yeah, and of course Exciter. Exciter is early speed metal. That's all there is to say. I mean, it's, It was a early, almost a thrash song. So.
Yep.
Anyhow, so we basically have come to the conclusion that neither band is better than the other. We like them both.
They're all great, yeah.
But
and they all have so many, especially Iron Maiden has so many albums, yeah.
Iron Maiden's live albums, my gosh, they have as many live albums. They got studio albums these days.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know, man. They're all just great. I mean, obviously, anybody watching my videos know that these bands are great. It's not like these are underground bands, but I just thought it'd be fun just to talk about them and kind of compare them. And I mean, it is the one thing metalheads do. They compare bands and who's better, Maiden or Priest, and everybody always has their opinions.
Yep.
So I'm not saying one's better than the other.
They're both great.
They're both great. It really depends on my mood. I just love them both. So to say one's better than the other, just not for me.
They both have their moments.
Yeah, they both have their weaknesses. I actually thought about picking what is the one album you think is the weakest from those bands. For me, Turbo is probably the weakest. Maybe Demolition from Priest.
Yeah, Turbo would be for
Turbo.
me, yeah.
Demolition's got some decent songs. Turbo is just hard for me. I just that synth guitars and the poppy sound, and Maiden.
Maiden would probably be one of those Blaze Bailey albums would be the weakest to me.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but
Dance of Death kind of is. That's not the best.
It's all right. It's just I don't know. They never went really the commercial.
To be fair to Blaze Bailey, though, if you haven't checked out any of his stuff after he left Iron Maiden,
he's got some great stuff out.
His band Blaze, great stuff.
And his band before Wolfsbane was great too.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really think people blame him for those two albums, but there's no blame to be had.
He didn't run that band.
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't write the songs.
Right. Yeah.
He just sang in them.
Yeah.
And he wasn't Bruce Dickinson. So unfortunately, anybody.
What a to go in even for either one of those singers have to go in and fill those shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's videos of people throwing stuff at Blaze Bailey in South America up on stage and all that, and he's a good singer. He sang the Bruce Dickinson songs pretty well.
Yeah, he did.
His voice is a good match with Bruce. So, and I'm sure that's why Steve Harris chose him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ripper did a freaking fantastic job.
Ripper. Yeah.
I actually got to see him on one of the tours that Ripper was on. He was fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyhow, all right. So anyhow, that's it. We don't really have a conclusion, but what I want to know is who do you guys like the best? So leave a message below. Let me know which one do you prefer. What is your favorite Maiden album? What is your favorite Priest album? And who do you prefer, Maiden or Priest? So let me know what you think below, and I will try to answer everybody as I usually do. Appreciate you all watching. Again, this is Rob Whitlock from Ultimatum, and I'm Scott Waters, and I appreciate you all watching. That's it.
All right.
God bless.
Later.
Stay strong.